If we ask the question, who is President Donald Trump's closest and most trusted African American, some may draw a blank or say that person does not exist. But contrary to the belief of some African Americans, Trump has a long standing history with supporting, befriending, associating, and doing business with African Americans, going back to as far as anyone can remember. But for some reason, many have forgotten the decades long period of time before his first presidency, where Donald Trump has been beloved of and celebrated by many, many Black Americans throughout New York City and the entire U.S. However, one of Trump's closest and most trusted African Americans is not who anyone would have imagined. Arguably, a different kind of African American. Let's take a look at who this is.
A man who's shaping the world on all the fronts.
He is
Elon Musk.
Pollination of Thomas Edison and Tony Stark.
But where did his story begin? We're going to uncover the fascinating story of Elon Musk's journey from Africa to Canada to his final destination, America. We start where it all began. Elon's childhood. Born in 1971, he grew up in Pretoria, a large city in the northeastern part of South Africa, just an hour's drive from Johannesburg. Elon grew up in apartheid, a violent period where frequent clashes between blacks and whites were common.
Why was it terrible?
It was very violent.
It was this history of violence that would besiege his childhood and was one of the reasons he left the country. In his early years, he lived with both his parents, May and Errol Musk, along with two siblings, Kimball and Tosca, in Pretoria.
Well, this is, of course, back in the days before there were video games, and TV wasn't very good either. So, I was actually, for quite a while, the youngest and the smallest in the class.
When Elon was 8, his parents separated. May took the family to Durban, along South Africa's eastern coast. Elon decided to move back in with his father after 2 years. For many years, Musk endured relentless bullying and beatings.
I was almost beaten to death, if you'd call that bullied.
As Elon states, that's what made growing up difficult. For a number of years, there was no respite. You get chased around by gangs at school, while his violent encounters during adolescence instilled isolation in him. Elon furthered his own self-education by engaging in interests such as making new video games and reading. Subsequently, Elon's highest grades were in subjects he was passionate about, like physics and computers. These interests proved progressive, including Elon's view in favor of solar power. Yet his mediocre grades in other subjects, coupled with his lack of interest in sports, rendered him unmemorable by most accounts.
I mean, I went back and I found all these kids that he went to grade school with, and I was really surprised. I mean, they said, like 2 or 3 of them said he was like the least likely guy that we thought would do anything exceptional.
When Elon had the chance to leave South Africa for Canada, he jumped at it. Canada would become the stepping stone for Elon Musk and shape him into the man he is today.
Elon, who has Canadian citizenship thanks to his mother May, began his undergrad studies at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, 3 hours east of Toronto. He chose Queen's over Canada's University of Waterloo, which is renowned for its engineering program, because, as he told Queen's magazine, there didn't seem to be any girls at Waterloo. I didn't want to spend my undergraduate time with a bunch of dudes. After 2 years at Queen's, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania as he thought attending an Ivy League school might help him land a job in America, the land of opportunity when it comes to tech. Still, degrees in economics and physics weren't enough to make him a rocket scientist. When Elon Musk founded SpaceX in 2002, he only had 2 things going for him.
SpaceX basically consisted of carpet and a mariachi band. That's all of SpaceX.
Well, he did have one more thing, an ambition that knew no bounds. The sky is not the limit for Elon, whose mission is to send people to Mars. On April 20, 2023, humanity took one step closer to that dream when the world's largest rocket, the fully reusable Starship, attempted to go into orbit for the first time.
Obviously, this does not appear to be a nominal situation.
Although Starship failed to reach orbit, learning from failures is Elon's approach to his career building SpaceX. And to think he built a rocket company with just a bachelor's degree in economics and another in physics.
Now take a listen to how and why Trump and African-American Elon Musk became close friends and partners in the Trump administration.
Elon Musk is one of the world's richest men. Businesses in electric cars, space travel, and satellite-powered internet for the masses have made him famous around the world. In 2024, he was at the center of the US election as the owner of social media platform X, formerly Twitter.
His name is Elon Musk. He saved free speech.
I think this election, I think it's the most important election of our lifetime. The other side wants to take away your freedom of speech.
Oh, let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon.
Musk has undergone a political transformation, moving him deep into right-wing politics and into the center of American power.
Elon Musk!
I'm not just MAGA. I'm dark, gothic MAGA.
Claims over free speech on social media are at the heart of much of this.
The future is gonna be amazing!
Until recently, Musk's politics have been hard to pin down. Here he is in 2011.
And I'm sort of moderate, sort of half Republican, half Democrat, if you will. But I'm somewhere in the middle. I guess I'm sort of socially liberal and fiscally conservative, which I think a lot of the country is, actually.
So, how did this political transformation take place? Journalists who reported on his career and interviewed people close to him say it started in the COVID years, when many people in Silicon Valley turned to social media as their primary source of information.
And Musk was one of those people, and very early on, he started to use social media to question the seriousness of COVID. He felt like the reaction to COVID, the lockdowns that we had, specifically in California, were overzealous, and they affected his businesses.
Forcibly imprisoning people in their homes against all their constitutional rights. That's my opinion. This is fascist.
Around the same time, he was going through some things in his personal life. One of his children was embarking on a gender transition, and he really objected to that. He did not want that to happen.
He became increasingly consumed with identity politics and complained that progressive values were being forced upon people, what he calls the woke mind virus.
Wokeness, the woke mind virus, the woke mind virus, the woke mind virus, the woke mind virus, the wokeness, woke mind virus is communism rebranded.
He was also concerned with online content moderation.
Twitter had just suspended the account of the Babylon Bee, which is a right-wing satirical site, and they had been suspended for violating Twitter's policy against misgendering. And Musk loves the Babylon Bee. It's one of his favorite accounts. He thinks it's really funny, and so he really objected to that. And right before he made the offer to buy Twitter in April of 22, you see he's exchanging text messages with his ex-wife about the fact that the Babylon Bee suspension is wrong, and she says, well, maybe you should just buy Twitter.
And make it radically free speech.
Reinstate common sense to the way content is moderated.
In 2022, he did buy Twitter for $44 billion, and later renamed it X. He called for a digital town square without political bias.
It's not some right-wing takeover, as say people on the left may fear, but rather a moderate-wing takeover, and that we obviously need to get rid of the bots and scams and trolls and people that are operating huge bot armies in an attempt to unduly influence the public opinion.
The changes came thick and fast. He fired content moderation teams, including the very teams that were tasked with getting rid of the bots that he'd warned against, all part of massive staff cuts to save costs. In the name of his version of free speech, he reinstated accounts like conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, controversial influencer Andrew Tate, and Donald Trump. Restoring the former president was warmly welcomed by some Republicans who may have spotted a potential ally sharing their views and complaints about social media and free speech.
I think that Republicans have gotten very good at using the fundamental rights embedded in the Constitution as a kind of political football, such that they say, we defend these rights and the Democrats are opposed to these rights.
To reclaim the right to free speech for all Americans, and reclaim is a very important word in this case because they've taken it away. In recent weeks,
I also think that there was a genuine concern about the way in which social media companies are moderating content. And I think there is a sense on the political right that the way they've drawn the lines about what counts as hate speech, what counts as harassment and bullying, has been misguided, and that we need to redraw those lines in other places. I think that's a legitimate argument to have, and I think it's a reasonable debate that people ought to have. But it's not a debate between people who believe in free speech and between people who don't. It's a serious issue about how to draw difficult lines. President Trump has referred to journalists as enemies of the people. That is hardly a pro-free speech, pro-freedom of the press perspective.
because the media, those people right there, they're corrupt, largely corrupt. They are truly the enemy of the people. They are.
Musk has shown how far he is willing to go to protect his version of free speech on X. When Musk refused to ban several accounts linked to election misinformation and violence in Brazil, he was hailed as a hero by fans of former far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. But some have accused him of hypocrisy after X accepted requests to remove content from governments like India and Turkey. He said the platform can't go beyond the laws of a country it operates in.
If we have a choice of either our people go to prison or we comply with the laws, we will comply with the laws.
Musk's claims to protect free speech were undermined after prominent journalists had their X accounts temporarily suspended, linked to coverage of a dispute over an account that tracked his private jet. While advertisers and users left X after changes under Musk's ownership, its value fell. Musk became the most followed account and became more and more active. X became his greatest tool to reach audiences and influence opinion, and it's where he campaigned for the next president in 2024.
After Elon Musk endorsed Donald Trump in July, he went all in on campaigning for Trump, and he was posting a lot more than he ever has before, hundreds of times a day. We were looking at his posts over time, and there were some days where there was a gap in his posting, only about maybe 3 or 4 hours. And most of those posts were political, either endorsing Trump, talking about positive things that Trump might bring, or attacking Kamala Harris and saying, you know, if the Democratic Party wins, then we'll never have free elections again in the United States.
They want to take away your right to vote effectively.
So he really threw the weight of his own account behind Trump.
He echoed unproven claims about election fraud and unproven claims the Democrats imported undocumented immigrants to vote for them. Away from X, he poured money into a pro-Trump campaign group. According to government filings, Musk donated more than $118 million, and he gave away million-dollar checks to voters. The political calculation paid off. Musk has been picked for a role advising the White House on spending and regulation, and for now at least, appears to be very close to President Trump.
Now, if you've made it to this point in the video, we have a very important bonus for you. Take a listen.
When he was in New York, I used to read stories about why people hated him because he hung around with Mike Tyson. He hung around with Al Sharpton. He hung around with boxing promoters, King, who was completely disreputable. In other words, it gets him in trouble sometimes, but his attitude is he judges people on what their usefulness is and their ability is. And I think he got that from being a builder. And he got a lot of empathy for people who are not in the, and he's an outsider too. I mean, with the mugshot, you know, you talk to people in Manhattan and you ask them, before Trump was president, was he on the A, B, or C list? And they will tell you the D list. They didn't want to go to dinner with him because he had declared bankruptcies, or he'd been married 3 times, or the way he looked was... And that plays to his advantage, that he does not judge people by the way that traditional Republicans do. If you come and talk to Trump, he's impressed by Harvard, Yale, and all that, but he's not exclusionary. So he will bring people around him of any background if he finds out they have talent, and that makes him accessible. I'll give you an anecdote. When I was writing the first book, I talked to a lot of people, and I talked to a very important financier in New York, and he said he could see sometimes out his window one of Trump's buildings, and no one knew that Trump was being watched. He didn't know, but he would get out of his car and go shake hands with the cement person, the electricians. There was no advantage other than as a businessman but he felt comfortable with them. Another person I asked him about who played golf with him, and he said, yes, he bets on all the time, and sometimes he, quote unquote, forgets his wallet when the bet is due. But he said, before I got angry, it wasn't very long at all after I had played with him and we were betting on holes and he wouldn't pay up, he would walk over to another group of caddies, Cuban Americans, and he'd come back and he wouldn't say anything. And then he got curious, and so after Trump left, he went over there, and he said he went over and gave us cash to send for our funeral, for a family member to be buried. And he said the same thing. Another person said, we went into Mar-a-Lago to eat, and all of a sudden he disappeared in the kitchen. So we didn't know what was going on. And then we found out he went into the kitchen and said, we closed the restaurant, so I have my friends over, and here's $200 for each of you, and lost tips in cash. So he has an empathy with working people. And that's why he couldn't fake that when he was those 2 iconic moments at McDonald's when that Indian American guy said, I'm just ordinary. And he just out of the blue said, you are not ordinary. And then his wife said, you took a bullet. And Trump just, I think I did. And it was, I guess I did take a bullet for you. And the same thing with the garbage truck. Nobody else could do that.